Nothing but certain love. That's good. Like, because we.
to order at 5:30 p.m. and ask for any amendments to the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. I have none.
Thank you. A motion that the agenda for the special council meeting of February 1st, 2024 be approved as presented. Moved by Councilor Lego, seconded by Councilor Timpson. All in favor? Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Junior ones, yes, actually, I have two this evening. The first is from Councillor Van Breda, and it will be respecting the when council is discussing donations, and in particular the donation request from Slurpsy. Councillor Van Breda is employed by Slipknot, which is the administrative arm for Slurpsy. Additionally, Councillor Bone is also declaring interest in one of the donation request items, and it's the request from the Sturgeon River Cottagers Association. He has relatives that live and are part of the Sturgeon River Cottagers Association. So when council is discussing donations, when we get to those specific ones, each member will leave for the discussion on that particular item, and they will return.
Thank you. And we'll also go right to delegations. So we do have one delegation, two actually. The second is the treasurer. The first is Recreation Center league fees. Sheila Supervich, the volleyball league. If you'd like to come up to the table and take the mic, Sheila, just introduce yourself for the record. The table is yours for 10 minutes, I believe.
Hi, my name is Sheila Supervich, and I am here as the kind of commissioner of the townwide co-ed adult volleyball league. I do have some kind of handouts. Can I give these out? You might already have a copy of the presentation, but there's like another bit of supporting documents in there. How does this work? Yeah. Okay, so just some kind of background on the logistics of the league. It consists of 11 teams this year, but it varies between 8 to 12 teams. And it runs weekly on Mondays, typically from 6 to 9 p.m. It was cut short to 8:30, which I will get into in the latter part of the presentation. And it runs for 20 weeks. The number of weeks kind of depends on the months, and I don't think we ran for 20 weeks last year. It really just depends on the calendar. Oh. Okay, so the cost of the league. So this was last year. We originally ran out of Sacred Heart School, and running out of the schools is great because it's free. So it keeps costs low, but those places are really sought after. So they can be difficult to get for something, especially long term. And like Sacred Heart, it's too small. Like it was only one court, so it was really hard to work with. So we ended up moving over to the rec center because QP was going through strikes anyways, and we weren't able to use that site anymore. So I was able to work with the rec center and get a price of $2,000 for the remainder of the season with 10 teams, which was affordable. That was fine. That wasn't the issue. Okay, so then we're into this year. So, sorry, can you go back one more?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then there was discussion with the program coordinator at the end of the last season that the rec center would maybe take the league over. This was a league that was originally ran through the rec center by them, But at the point, one of their managers, pretty much my understanding, dissolved a lot of the adult programming that was run through them and put it back on community members and volunteers to do themselves. So I met with the program coordinator, and he was very ill prepared for this meeting. He pretty much wanted to change every logistics of the league and didn't have any kind of pricing available. So there was nothing prepared. There was nothing for me to say, yep, you can take this over. So I really didn't feel comfortable with that. So I decided, okay, I'll just keep doing it, but I need some pricing options, which wasn't available at the time. And he was supposed to get me multiple options, and he didn't. It was just one kind of set price. Yeah, okay.
You just let me know when you change.
Okay. So we ended up with a price of $2,400.12 for 20 weeks, which was $40 an hour, basically. We had to charge $300 a team. We needed a minimum of 8 teams in order just to cover that cost. So we did have 10 teams and then 1 team with a prorated price. We did have to buy 2 of our own volleyballs for $180.78. So then this brings me into the issues. And while these are more some internal staffing issues, it still is part of the budget. And as a league who's paying into the facility, we should be able to get something back and expect like something of the rec center. There were nets that were supposed to be looked at prior to the season, and they weren't. They were actually damaged and unsafe for use. There were supposed to be extra volleyballs out. They weren't there. And when I brought these issues up, I was told that there's no timeline to fix them, and was basically encouraged to find a new venue and that they would refund me instead of supporting our league and trying to help. There is an email actually in that packet from the program coordinator. It's highlighted the parts of it that express that. There was also, this is why we had to go to ending at 8:30, because there were incidents, and the rec manager said that they were limiting bookings to 8:30 p.m. I wasn't told what the incidents were. But I did talk to desk staff who had informed me that it was because the staff had complained that they weren't leaving at exactly 9 p.m. So based on our breakdown of fees, I said that I had expected a refund of $300.02. You can go to the next page, Brian. But I did receive an email back from the manager that we were receiving a youth rate, and that he actually wanted to adjust the pricing to adult pricing and invoice me for the remaining balance, and only honored the pricing because I had written communication, proof that this was the agreed upon pricing. And I had to wait 1.5 months to get the refund. I actually had to go through Chris Favot, not the manager, to get the refund. And there's the email is included in that packet from the manager stating all of that. So the current gym rental pricing, adult pricing is $60 an hour, youth is $40. The pricing that we had was fair. It was doable. And it's not really so much that I'm upset about what we paid this year. It's that it seems to be whoever's working, whoever's the manager at the time, whoever is the coordinator, makes up pricing depending on how they're feeling that day, if you know them. So that's kind of what my complaint and like why I'm here is that I want something that's something that is, you know, works for everybody, supports the community, supports these programs that we're running on volunteers. So yeah, if we did like the $60 an hour, the adult rate, we would need a minimum of 8 teams at $450 a team just to cover it. So these kind of pricing start to scare people away and push people away, which is why we probably wouldn't have been able to get that many teams to cover the fee at the end. So yeah. So I just wanted to make a point that this isn't just about volleyball. This isn't just about my league and how I feel. I did talk to other people who were running programs. Justin Poling was trying to do a men's drop-in basketball right after COVID ended. He wanted to get sports started back up again. He was told user fees would cost him $3,400 for the year for a couple hours a week for drop-in basketball. They had offered him a discounted rate, which then they tried to renege on when he went to go pay. And he personally paid $1,600 out of pocket just so that he could get some sort of sports activity going. And the rec center wasn't supportive. They put all the onus on him if people were coming because he paid for the rental space. So they wouldn't help if people didn't pay him to kind of join this men's drop-in. The staff were not helpful in turning people away. I also talked to the gymnastics club. They have an equipment storage rental of about $5,300 a year, plus their gym rental of about $6,500 a year, plus extra fees. So they ended up paying about $14,600 for the year. So I guess pretty costly to families for gymnastics, which has been running for like such a long time. So it's just again to show you the kind of pricing and how discouraging it is for volunteers to keep trying to run these programs. I also talked to baseball. Their issues were more so on the maintenance and upkeep, again, putting the money in and not really receiving anything back. Had to do, and like with the lights and paying for this, but the service is not really being there. Like the lights wouldn't be turned on when they're supposed to be, or they'd be turned on when they're not supposed to be. Yeah. So I'm really looking for some accountability. We're paying all this money, but we're not really getting anything. Nobody helps with setup and takedown, which not all the sports need that. There's no cleaning in between bookings. We've gone in, it's been absolutely filthy. I've swept the floor myself. They don't help to get rid of people who aren't a part of your league. I've asked for help. They don't help. The equipment they don't maintain, nothing is replaced. And the point is the rec center is operating its heating regardless. If you could make it more affordable and more encouraging for more leagues and clubs, you would probably make more in the end anyway, because it has to stay on. You're using those costs regardless. So the rec center itself does run some programs. Right now they have a soccer league, an indoor soccer league, which only costs people $30 a season. And it's free for people if you played last year and are willing to moderate one game. There's a printout as well in there that shows the sign up sheet for it. And then there's drop-in for $5 drop-in rate. So it's not as if the rec center isn't doing things to make things affordable. It's just their own things that they're doing. They're not really supporting anything else. So really what I'm asking from council, and I've been told that this is more of a bylaw issue than a budget issue, but to still come and talk about this stuff today, is I'm really looking for some kind of new pricing grid to support volunteer run programming, whether it be on number of users versus weeks and hours, or a new rental rate. And I have been meeting with Brian every so often, and I would just really like to encourage the use of like a reserve funding for equipment and maintenance. We were told that we couldn't get a new rope for a net. It would have been like $70. I don't know why that was such an issue that I had to bring it up to the CAO for them to fix. And whether this is a budget issue or not because of staff and moving their schedules, but if we're going to book a gym until 9 o'clock, I don't feel like we should be pressured to leave at 8:50 so the staff can leave at 9 on the dot. If it's open until 9, I don't think it's unreasonable for a staff member to be there until 9:15, which they were. I worked there. We were there until 9:15 and then it changed. I'm not really sure why, but. And I did start a little petition, which was really just to show that this isn't just me. Again, this is affecting other people. So you do have a copy of the petition of the signed names. And I just would like to thank you for your time.
We're sorry that your experience was less than ideal, but it's good to know, and I'm sure that staff are already working on some of the things you brought up. Just a couple of questions before I ask council. What were people signing the petition? I see the list of names. What were they signing for?
Sorry, the petition was just to encourage like a new pricing grid for the use of like the rec center and
That's what they were
Yes.
for.
I think it's important that we recognize, so I think it's important that we recognize that we're hearing you. We hear what you have to say. And I think that we have already taken some positive steps in the right direction. Like we have hired Brian McKinnon, who is an action-based person who has indicated that he wants us to get back to a service model, which we all are in favor of. We have several counselors who are regularly at the rec center who are listening to you and who are voicing concerns themselves. And Brian has already taken steps. So I sort of, I think we need a little bit of patience because Brian has only been here for 30 days and he's already taken major steps. So I think that if you don't see changes happening in the near future, you need to talk to Councillor Bowen, who's there almost every day, Councillor Cassidy. They spend half of their time there. So they hear you, we all hear you. And I think we just have to put our faith in Brian and just give him a little bit of time to make sure that this plays out in a positive direction. Because I do believe that if you pay for the services, you should have proper equipment, you should have safe equipment, you should have a clean space, and you should have a staff that is supporting your program. You know, we're grateful that you're running these programs for our community. You're making opportunities in the community that everybody appreciates. And we would like to see that in the future you feel supported from our organization. And those are our goals. And I know they're Brian's goals, and I know he's working hard and his staff is working hard to get there. So hopefully we get there within 6 months to a year, but if not, we hope to hear from you again.
I will be back.
I hope so. And I know that everyone on council, like we're out and about all the time, and we appreciate people stopping and talking to us. We appreciate that. We like to know what's going on. And if people do stop us and talk to us, we have meetings with Brian. We go to Brian. A lot of us meet with Brian, bi-weekly, twice a month. And any concerns that we have, we bring them forward and we work with him for solutions. And he, again, works with his staff and gets back to us. So, I don't I want you to feel like we're listening to you, okay?
That's what I'm reading.
Yeah, I would like to echo what Councillor said. I want to say thank you so much for including the facts and the numbers. That really made a big difference. Have you spoken to the new rec center manager yet?
I have not. Has she started yet?
No. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, but I guess yeah. You probably yeah. So hopefully with the new manager, some positive things can come about. Yeah. Thanks again.
Councillor Cassidy.
Thanks for the presentation, Sheila. Just to clarify, you mentioned through the presentation, the pricing wasn't so much of the factor. It's the support, but the petition is for a new grid for different pricing. Is it safe to assume that the priority here would to have better support from the rec center for these leagues and for the volunteers running it before the pricing is looked at?
Well,
Or-
the pricing wasn't an issue because we were given like the youth pricing, so it was discounted. But if they were to have us pay the adult rate, then it would really factor into people's registration. So it is about the pricing grid. That's my main goal. I mean, it's both, really. Yeah.
And how many players are on a team generally? 6 on the court? Do you have
It's on the court. It's usually like 8 people, probably average on a team.
Thank you.
Further council? Councilor Bone.
I'm there every morning. I'm there 4 nights a week. So, it's no surprise what they brought up. I just like through marijuana stuff. Let staff let you know what's going on at this point. What they're up to, what they're doing.
Sia, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion? Just a reminder, delegations, council asks questions of the delegation. The delegation doesn't ask questions of council. You're asking a question of staff, and I'll let staff answer.
Mayor Lawrence, thank you. Yes, I had the opportunity to meet with Sheila a couple of times in the fall, and I have a very good understanding of the concerns with respect to program delivery, support, the facility itself, equipment. So yes, absolutely. I'll be working with the new manager. Council will see this evening. There has been staff is recommending allocation of some additional funding to address some of the equipment issues in 2024, not just for the volleyball league, but across the board, including the fitness center. So yes, absolutely. We are looking forward to providing better service to the leagues and to everyone that visits the rec center going forward. So that's our commitment for sure. And I look forward to ongoing dialogue with this opportunity.
And I think perhaps CEO can suggest the council directs staff to review the grid, the rental grid. User fees are something that comes to council, I think. So consider this user fees to take a look at that and bring back a report to council. If council supported of that request, given direction to staff to bring back a report to council on the user fee grid for the rec center. Fair enough, council. Council Costa.
And the other thing maybe check into is the grid being followed, like Sheila said, is it one price for you? Because I know we went.
Once a policy has been set, it must be followed. So
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilor Thompson.
I'm not sure whether the question is for Sheila or CAO. What happens in other recreation departments with larger facilities? Would they have a program person who organize the whole volleyball team and you just pay one fee? Do you know how that would work?
I actually did look into places in the area like Thunder Bay, Ignace, Red Lake. They actually don't have a gym. So they don't run those programs because they don't have the space. I don't know about larger places like big cities, but in the area, it's just not, they don't have it.
Very good. If there's nothing further, council, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And item 4.2, the 2024 municipal budget presentation. Treasurer, are you ready? We're good. You need a few minutes.
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, the management team tonight would like to present to you the 2024 municipal budget. So tonight's conversation in regards to a roadmap. Sorry. We will start with the property assessments. From there, we will be discussing operating and uncontrollable costs, one-time special projects, external agencies and donation requests, capital projects, and an overview and direction from council. So the first part that we'll be discussing is property assessments. So property assessments prior to COVID, we originally had additional revenue growth every year. So each year, then we would take that growth and council would determine how much of a tax levy increase that we would need in order to operate for year after year. So as you can tell from those years, it was rather low with the CIP roughly fairly close to it. After 2020, the Ministry of Finance then decided to do a freeze on property assessments. From there, our revenue growth was rather low compared to what it was pre-COVID. So as of right now, the Ministry of Finance has yet to give direction to MPAC as to how we will currently get out of that freeze and how that will look like moving forward. So moving into the 2024 budget, the property assessments are still frozen. So what does that mean for 2024? So the growth, we had $102,000 in growth from 2023 to 2024. These are changes due to building permits that were completed and assessed. It also shows the changes that occurred between each property class and where those extra revenues are coming from. So these extra classifications also is still currently based on the 2016 values. When they're assessed, they're not assessed on current values. So what does that mean for a tax levy increase? It means that a 1% tax levy increase this year will bring us approximately $122,000. From there, we're moving into operating and uncontrollable costs. So what makes up a municipal budget? Well, the first section is revenue sources. So the revenue sources are taxation revenue, government funding, which would include the OMPF. We would have internal transfers, so transfers that we receive from other areas of departments that are 100% user fee that help us with keeping our taxation levy lower. We also have other revenue. So other revenue is things such as our POA revenue that comes in from the city of Dryden. We have our hydro dividend. We have our penalties on accounts. We also have our interest on our bank accounts. So items like that that we don't necessarily have that we charge for user fees. So the user fees also include everything in regards to what we charge throughout our whole entire organization, including the airport. So when you're looking at the grid here right now, as discussed prior for the taxation levy, we have that growth. We have a little bit of a decrease in regards to funding. That is mostly due to last year we had projects that ran through our operating budget that had funding associated with those. However, those projects such as studies don't have funding associated with them this year. The internal transfers are up. This is mostly due to transfers that are being used to help offset the new vehicles that we purchased through the LAS program. It was determined that we would pull revenue from reserves in order to pay for those leases this year. And then a report would come back to council to determine how we were going to move forward in regards to all of our other vehicles and whether or not we were going to stick with the LAS program. The other revenue is up. That is also due to MAT tax revenue that is currently coming in. So half of that goes to the municipality. The other half is then transferred to the Chamber of Commerce. And then the user fees. So the user fees are up. That is mostly due to the sales of the fuel at the airport. So we have more revenue coming in from that because we have more planes that are being fueled from there. So our operating budget for expenses. So the first section in regards to administration costs, we have a little bit of an increase there. That is mostly due to items that we will need to write off in regards to taxation. There's a couple of properties within the municipality that will need to be written off because of assessments. The assessments will be changing from commercial to residential. So we had to budget for that. Contracted services has gone up. That is mostly due to contracted services that are out of our control. In regards, we need to bring in specialty contractors that deal with items that our current staff currently cannot perform, such as electrical, maintenance on huge buildings that we currently can't do, plumbing, all those items. Staff is currently not trained in order to do those things. So therefore, we have to bring in contractors in order to get those items done and completed. It also includes the inspections that need to be had on all of our elevators as well. That contract has gone up. Our debt has gone down. That's due to a couple of loans that have been paid off, along with council's decision for 1 year's revenue to pay off some of our loans so that we didn't have to pay as much interest. Equipment. So the equipment has gone up. A lot of that has to do with the equipment fuel purchase of gasoline and such at the airport in order to keep that maintained properly. The employment costs have gone up. A lot of that has to do with stuff that is out of our control in regards to EI, CPP, WSIB, OMERS, our benefits, all those items take into consideration, along with a couple of the new employees that we currently have. Our fleet has gone up. One thing that we've taken into consideration this year in regards to is the maintenance of our fleet. Currently, right now, we have no mechanics. So the fleet costs, in order for us to keep our fleet maintained properly and safe to be on the roads, have to be contracted out. All those items are taken into consideration as part of the fleet. The other items that are also taken into consideration, gas and diesel have gone up in price. Same with any sort of items to maintain those fleets internally, oil changes and stuff that we can do in-house. All those things have gone up in price that we have absolutely no control over. Our internal transfers are the same. They've gone up a little bit, but that's because the internal transfers that are coming in from users are now coming in to support the taxation. Municipal taxes, those are the taxes that we currently pay ourselves for the buildings that we currently own. Supplies have gone up, but however, $1.8 million of those supplies pertain to the fuel that we have to purchase in order to sell at the airport. So the rest of the supplies have to do with the supplies such as janitorial and other items that we need in order to keep all of our buildings safe. Cleaning supplies and such forth, those items are uncontrollable costs. We do try and buy in bulk so that we do save in areas. However, when prices go up everywhere, there's not much that the municipality can do and managers in order to keep those costs down. Utilities include everything in regards to water and sewer, hydro, and propane. We are looking at that biomass project that's going to be put in this year within Public Works and the fire hall. However, we're not entirely sure what those savings are going to be until the full product gets up and going. The reserve transfers. So this includes taxation and user fees in regards to what's being transferred to reserves. However, keep in mind that whenever we sell buildings, whenever we sell land, that land sales goes directly into reserves. It goes into the land development reserve, and then that land development reserve is used to help purchase land, and it's also going to be used to help support the Hillcrest property, which we're hoping to sell a couple of lots this year. So that's why there's such a huge increase within that section. Uncontrollable costs. So this is everything that is 100% out of the municipality's control as to what we pay every year or this year. So as you can see here, almost everything has gone up in price, which we currently do not have control over. The reason that the Sioux Senior Center and the Salvation Army is on that list is because as of right now, it's currently within a bylaw that has been passed by council. And council has stated that within each year, the municipality is going to contribute X amount of dollars within that bylaw. One of those bylaws is due for renewal and will be coming to council this year for new costs for 2025 and moving forward. So as you can see here, we have $4 million of uncontrollable costs every year that the municipality has to pay out. So this comes to a 3.31 tax levy increase just for the uncontrollable costs. So to summarize, for our operating budget, we currently have a shortfall of $686,000 in order for us to maintain current levels of service with what we're currently providing to the public. So we have a 3.31% tax levy increase for the uncontrollable costs. And we would have a 2.31% tax levy increase for just our operating, which would then bring us to the 5.62 tax levy increase in total in order to cover our day-to-day operations. From there, we have one-time special projects. So our one-time special projects are projects that would only happen every couple of years and that are not part of our day-to-day operations and something that we wouldn't typically see within our capital projects. So they're divided into 3 different categories. Our legislated projects. So this includes the community risk assessment and the roads and sidewalk assessment that needs to be completed this year. The roads and sidewalk assessment is part of the asset management regulations that we have to abide to. This has to be done every 5 years, and the last one was done in 2018. When we did it in 2018, we only did the roads. This year, we have to do the roads and the sidewalks. So this cost also will give us a 5 and 10-year capital plan in regards to maintenance and in regards to what we need to do in order to save money, to maintain them, capital projects, when we should replace stuff when, which goes hand in hand with our asset management policy, which we have to do, along with the legislated 5 and 10-year plan, which council has to approve next year. So this will kind of give us a little bit of a head start in regards to it for that one small section of the asset management plan. So with that, we're looking at asking council to approve funds coming from the municipal accommodation tax and the road reserve in order to support that. So there's a couple of commitments that council has discussed in 2023. One was a heritage cultural intern of 19,000. The other one was the outdoor washroom. So the majority of the outdoor washroom has been funded already. This is the additional cost for us to put it in and maintain it this year. We also looked at the tourism diversification infrastructure enhancement study. This study is to figure out our arena, the possible pool, and other items around town. We are currently looking at funding through FedNor, and this would be the municipal contribution for that. However, if the funding isn't approved, then another conversation would need to happen with council as to whether or not they would want that project to move forward without the funding. The other project to make council aware of is the water bottle fountain station initiative. This was an initiative that was brought to our attention in 2022 between the municipality and the Northwestern Health Unit to bring safe drinking water stations into multiple locations around town. So a couple of those locations included the town beach, the travel information center, because there's the playground right there and it's right close to the walking path, the Centennial Park, along with the Ball Diamonds. All those places have high traffic areas and was discussed whether or not those stations should go there. It's estimated to cost us approximately $50,000 in order to set up all those stations around town and to make sure that they're winterized and they're ready to go for use. So we decided to pull that from the utilities reserve. External agencies and donation requests. So this happens every year. The municipality puts out notice when we're starting to put the budget together in regards to there's any communities within the organization within the community that needs extra funding in order to support whatever initiative that they currently have going on. So the first one is the external agency, which is the Sioux Public Library. A lot of people believe that the public library is actually a department of the municipality, which is incorrect. We help fund the library for their operations, and council decides every year what amount that they would like to support the library with. Every year, the support comes from taxation. Then we have the community donation requests. So these 4 donation requests have been brought to our attention. The Nordic Nomads for the cross country ski club, they're looking at purchasing a piece of equipment that will help them deal with brushing and everything every fall and make it easier on their volunteers. The Northern Lights Community Theater, they're looking at needing additional support in regards to insurance to deal with directors and other items. We have the Sioux Region Physician Services, Inc. They're a copy of their presentation that was already done with council as part of the package. They're looking for a 2-year commitment from council for each year for $50,000. And then the Sturgeon River Cottagers Association in regards to maintenance on the road. Those funds would need to come from taxation in order to support their requests. Capital projects. So first off is the airport department. So last year, the airport worked on engineering and design in regard to a new equipment garage, an additional equipment garage that they need. Now we're looking at moving into the build phase. One of their half-ton trucks needed to be pulled from the road because it doesn't follow safety anymore, so it would need to be replaced. We have additional loader attachment that is needed. Parking lot design. We're currently out of parking space up at the airport, so additional parking is needed. And in order for us to figure that out, we need to bring in a company that would do a design for us. Security cameras need to be upgraded and replaced. Scare tracks need to be purchased. And a secure holding area at the terminal building also needs to be enhanced and placed in. All those funding sources are divided up into different areas. So the main funding of the $2.1 million is coming from ACAP. We applied to ACAP last year, and we should know by early spring whether or not it's been approved. The rest would come from reserves, long-term debt, and user fees from up at the airport. Facilities. The men's change room renovation needs an upgrade. Public Works. The John Deere backhoe needs to be replaced as it no longer it's getting quite cost effective. It's getting quite costly for us to maintain it. So a new one needs to be purchased. We're looking at doing multiple road resurfacing around town that doesn't have infrastructure underneath in order to extend the useful life on it. And we're looking at doing improvements to the recreation parking lot. Right now, there's currently some drainage issues that are happening. So we're looking at fixing those drainage issues, patching those up, and hopefully it will prolong the useful life of the parking lot there. NWI's requests for utilities. So these are all the big areas within our treatment plants that need to be upgraded. Some of them don't, are at the end of its useful life in regards to the peat moss. So those have to all be upgraded and replaced, and other items. These are typically normal replacements that have to happen every couple of years, which is why then it falls under capital and it's not part of their day-to-day operations. All those costs would come from the utilities reserve. Recreation and culture. Fencing and dugout enhancements need to be upgraded up at the outdoor ball diamonds. Some of the fencing is starting to kind of fall apart and be angled, so we need to look at replacing them. The weight room enhancements to equipment, we're looking at replacing some of the equipment that's up in the weight room. We're currently looking at purchasing 4 treadmills, a cup, and the other weights that's currently there. The treadmills have started to malfunction, and we're having a hard time finding materials for them in order to fix them. So it's time for us to replace those. A couple of them are leased as well. So those leases are coming up for renewal, which we will not be renewing this year because the company now no longer comes into Ontario in order to maintain them. So we find that it's easier for us to just purchase the treadmills as well. We're also looking at a couple of stationary bikes. The other item that's on the list is the big belly garbage cans that was discussed at the last council meeting. So council had given staff direction to include that in the budget, and we did. It would roughly cost about $14,000 to bring in 3 for the town beach. And we currently do not have taxation. We currently would need to pull it from taxation dollars. So, overview and council direction. So our operating, which is where we'll start our discussion tonight. So we currently are bringing in roughly $37 million in revenue. Our expenditures are $34 million. Our uncontrollable costs are $4 million, with our total operating at $38 million, with the shortfall of $686. So staff is currently asking for a taxation levy increase of 5.62%. So if you were to take that 5.62%, the residential levy increase based on a $182,000 house medium would be $3,809, and it would be an increase from last year's tax rate of $203,000. Discussions to council in regards to operating.
First discussion is the increase would be 203, not 203,000.
Oh, sorry, 103. Yeah.
So, sorry, Treasurer, you open up for discussion from council?
Yes.
Council on the operating part of the budget. We want to go through.
You can, yeah.
Let's go through each of the.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We're looking at. All
Yeah.
okay.
No, sorry. Go back to the operating.
Here.
Oh,
So our operating budget right now, in order to have the same levels of service right now. CAO, there's one more little, sorry. It costs the municipality $34 million in order to operate on the same levels of service that we are currently offering at the current moment.
Council questions, Councilor Thompson.
I've spent a great deal of time reviewing this budget, and I strongly believe that there's a lot of room for movement, that this budget is very rich. And for example, in supplies, I've taken out the airport and I've taken out the utilities because they pay for themselves. So I've just looked at the departments, and just with supplies alone, the increase is $102,650, which is a 25% increase over last year. So I believe, strongly believe that there is movement in there, that we can find some savings there, that there are savings that can be found there. We can bring that down. And I also believe that if we look at the admin costs, that again, taking out the airport, the water and the sewer, because they pay for themselves. Looking at the other departments, we spend $450,000 on admin costs, which is an increase of $86,000 since last year. And I believe there can be savings there. That is quite a bit. Also, if we look at contracted services, in contracted services, there is, without the airport, again, without sewer or water, we're spending $2 million on contracted services just for the departments. Brian has indicated to me, I did discuss it with Brian in advance, and he did indicate to me there's a $250,000 land purchase in this area as well. So are we obligated to purchase this land this year? Can we look at other ways to purchase this land? Like, is this the time to purchase the land if we have to have such a high tax increase? Like, what is the purpose of purchasing the land? I believe it's the land around the Cedar Bay that we're purchasing. Also, just for the planning board alone, we have a consultant at $340,000. I think that is exorbitant. I do not think this community can afford a $340,000 consultant. I think that I would like to ask staff if they can look at some of these consulting fees and maybe bring us a report and see where we can find savings, because the contracted services have increased by $342,000 this budget alone. And that's again without the sewer, without the water, without the airport. So I believe that there's room in here for movement. Like, this is a 25% increase, which is substantial. And I'm not comfortable with this tax increase in the operating budget. I believe that we can bring these costs down by looking just in these three areas: supplies, admin costs, and contracted services. It's just three small areas, which are, substantial. It's almost like $350,000, $86,000, and $102,000, just the increase alone for this year. So there's room for movement in there to save taxpayers substantial money in here. The other question that I have is about donations. Can I talk about donations now?
No, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So, and the other thing, I don't know, I'll talk about this now.
This would be the operating budget and then.
But because I'm talking about the land purchase that's in the operating budget, Brian has indicated to us that we can't borrow money to buy land, that it has to either come from reserves, and we do not have the money in land reserves.
We do.
We have money in land reserves
We do.
to purchase the,
Yes, and it's included in the budget.
so why are we not purchasing the land from land reserves instead of purchasing it from?
We are, it's part of the land, it's part of the internal transfers.
Okay, so even though it's in the operating budget and it's part of the shortfall?
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be in the operating, why is it in the operating budget then?
Because we have to purchase it out of our operating budget and then we transfer from the reserves. So when you look at the revenue from the internal transfers, we're transferring that cost in order to pay for the sale of the land.
So to be clear, then the 250,000 doesn't form part of the budget increase. It's being paid for from internal reserves, from internal transfers from existing reserves.
That's correct.
So,
Has the land been purchased?
It has not.
Just on that, hasn't been purchased, if it's in the budget, is it been approved through the MR?
To Mayor Lawrence, we are in negotiations with the MNR for the parcel of land at the end of the street. The purpose of the purchase primarily is to create lands that could be relatively easily serviced for housing for the community. That's the purpose of looking at purchasing those lands.
Okay, there was a mention of Cedar Bay, I thought that.
Sioux once, we are in discussion with MNR with respect to land surrounding Cedar Bay, whether or not that's going to be a purchase or whether that's going to be some type of designation by the province to make that a protected recreation area. That still will be determined.
So the 200,000 is the land at the end of Prince Street that you're talking about?
Yes, and any other smaller land purchases that we're looking at.
I would say Prince King, it's the west part. It's a bit beyond, it doesn't extend farther south than just Prince Street.
Yeah, well, it extends actually north and south. So, yeah.
You're saying Prince
It would be
Street.
accessed most likely from Prince Street.
Councillor Lager.
Can I get an explanation why the library has been removed from operations for the last five budgets? We've always just decided council would just vote on whether we would vote for their increases, not for the whole 365,000. Usually that's already incorporated into operations. I see that now it's an external payment. And if I can get an explanation for that.
Sure, 3 hours. Staff felt it was important to be as transparent as possible with respect to what the actual municipal operating costs are and what all the other costs are. So whether it's one-time projects, whether it's uncontrollable costs, whether it's, and so because as the treasurer pointed out, the library isn't a department, we thought it was important to, so the council can understand what portion of the overall operating revenues are needed to operate the library as an external body.
Considering that council voted last year for $365,000, why wasn't that moved forward?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So last year we voted for their budget of $365,000. Why wasn't that moved forward to 2024? Because we're being asked for another 3.1% to cover that.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think the library is asking for 3.1%. That is it. Sorry, they're asking for 3.1% increase in their budget, right? It showed us an increase in the tax levy of 3.1%, but it's 3.1%. They're asking for, I believe, 12,360,000, which is 3.1% of their budget. So 3% of 360. It's not 3.1% tax levy, or am I misunderstanding the way this is being presented?
So just to clarify, it's still coming from the operating budget. It's still being housed with the municipality's operating budget because that's where it has to be housed. But we're trying to show it to council as a separate cost center. So, and the actual amount, 365 or whatever the case may be, is presented by the library board to the municipality. So they actually tell us how much they need to operate for the year, and that's the number we bring forward to council. This year represents a $12,000 or so increase.
So when we add up all of the percentages that were asked of us in these 5 recommendations, it's 10.68%.
Yes.
So that includes a 3.1% increase of
For the library.
For the library.
That's correct.
so.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so their total, their 365,000 of the total budget is 3.1%. It's not necessarily an increase though, because last year it was 300 and.
We're saying that the levy required to support the library
Yes.
requires 3.1% to
The budget. Yes.
of the budget to get the 380,000.
Sorry, just to make it clear, because I'm written down. So if we were to sort of add up all of the funding sources for taxation, so that's the donation requests, the library operating and non-controllable, that would be 10.68% tax increase for this year alone. Yes.
Correct.
That's all.
So, if I may, for you, Mayor Owens, the reason that number isn't highlighted anywhere is because there are 6 recommendations that council has to provide direction on. So there is math tax that has to be allocated. There is, once we have the 2022 on financial statements, which we're expecting at February council meeting, there will likely be a surplus, small surplus from 2022 that council will decide how it's going to allocate, whether that's going to be towards capital projects that don't currently have funding to reduce long-term debt, or whether that's going to be to pay off existing long-term debt, or however else council wants to allocate those funds. So yes, this is the reality and reason. If you look at page 3 of your actual balance package, that's where you'll see the 6 recommendations, which breaks out each part of the budget.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, if I could just comment on a couple of the costs in regards to contracted services, and why there is such a change increase within it. A lot of the items that are within that category, some of them are out of our control in regards to software licensing. Software licensing has been going up in regards to stuff that's out of our control, and that has gone up $33,000. That is completely out of our control. That's everything that has to do with all of the different types of software that we currently have. There's also stuff that is currently happening now every year in regards to asset management that we have to legally do, that is now starting this year, will be in every single budget. That has gone up about $50,000 in regards to asset management alone with contracted services. That's something that we're hoping in the future, once staff gets fully trained and everything else, a lot of it we can do in-house, but moving forward right now, we do not have the capacity to do so. And in order for us to meet legislation, we have to have that in place. Other things that we currently cannot do in-house is stuff like surveying and everything that we have to do for property that is currently going on. We also have to which is brand new. We have 20 grand roughly set aside to deal with the town beach and the regular maintenance and upkeep and contracted services that are right there. Also, $30,000 has gone up with POA services from Dryden, which is out of our control. So I understand that it is an increase, but however, a lot of those increases are out of our control, and we currently don't have a lot of wiggle room within that category.
It's a question up for, you want to turn to appendix 2, page 8, waste management. And just for the last multiple years, we had to pay for recycling. Was last year at about $207,000. Has that money been moved forward? Or has that been absorbed
That has been
prior? That $207,000 that was in recycling in 2023?
So those costs, most of those costs have been removed. And so if you were to look at the waste management total budget for theirs, they have a savings of $75,000. That includes the removal of the recycling contract we had. Yeah. A lot of the other costs then were an increase due to wages and benefits.
And we didn't, since it's a different format this year and we don't have a line for buying like usual, we are still not paying our post-closure landfill costs.
That is correct.
Something for the future.
Councilor Gibson.
Yeah, we had a discussion a few months ago about how we could bring in more money, and we looked at the airport, and we looked at the parking fees and some type of surtax we talked about. I'd like to know where that is at, because I feel that we could be finding different ways of bringing money in through work at the airport. I know there are some restrictions with the regulations on that, but how can we maneuver so that we get some of that in our operating budget?
Few airports. A couple of things. The airport transfer to the municipality has increased this year in 2024. Carly can give you the exact numbers, but or Ben can. Additionally, the airport is now through its revenues, which are not from tax base, as you know, is now providing the coordination and all the work required with respect to overseeing fleet maintenance for the entire organization. So that's an additional 200,000 additional contribution from the airport this year. So those contributions are certainly there. I'll let Ben provide some additional insight.
Just to reiterate what you said, Brian, is that's exactly right. We went up about 117,000 just on fleet this year. We also take in transfer $130,000 of allocated admin charges, which is finance, right? Finance and HR, and of course, in CAO. We pay our own property taxes for the terminal building as well. All that comes into about 279,000. And then on top of that, as we do every year, is we front 193,000 to the municipality for the commercial taxes. So you've got cash flow right off the bat, and then we collect that as we go. So it's protection for the municipality that if anything goes south at the airport, that it doesn't hit the tax base. So, you know, we're 280 in, and, you know, the 193 we do recoup, right? So, I mean, how much do you want to squeeze out of the airport? I'm just going to say it that way. And where are we going to get it from? So we're going to increase user fees and hire in another department to support this, right? That's an option, but do we start pricing ourselves out of the market? Like where do we want to go with that?
What about the parking fees? to me, they're pretty reasonable, and to me, that's a gold mine. We're talking about, increasing, getting more parking spots, but why don't we raise the fee for what we're already providing?
So through your memos, and again, Ben can speak to this a bit, but again, I think it's about being competitive with respect to the fees that we're charging for parking or otherwise. But Ben, if you want to add to that.
And it's an option if you're like to Councillor Tundland's point, it does generate revenue. So maybe the municipality can consider putting in parking systems and some of the municipal lots or other areas in town to collect the revenue from there. So now you're asking one user group to fund an entire user group, if you will. I mean, we need to put money back in the airport, and I don't have a problem with increasing that at the airport and giving it to the municipality. But if that takes away from our reserves and when we need money, it'd be well in hand that if we have an issue as far as navies and lighting and everything, and we don't have the money in order to pay for that, we'll come cap in hand back to council, like the airport would say. And, unfortunately, we need $1.5 million today. Do you have it to give back? So we have to be careful. I don't mind. I mean, you can tell me to give you all of the money I have, and we'll run her into the ground if you want us to. I mean, I'll just follow direction. But honestly, it's a finite sword because we're just going through this year. We have increased land leases have increased, right? I mean, just this past year, CPI was 6.5. When you start updating leases over a 5-year term, you can't literally go on what the increases have been because it's unaffordable for your tenants, right? So it's tough. I mean, if council sends direction to come back with some sort of report in that regard, then I'd be more than happy to do it. But just be careful as to how much you want to bleed.
I would like to see a report on that very issue because it's come up every year. I mean, we've really not looked at it in detail.
Council, further comments, questions on the operating motion? The treasurer will move on to the next stage.
In regards to
I would like us to start the process to investigate the selling of the 2 buildings in the Front Street because presently the sand station is operating at a loss. So I've been approached by a member of the community who was very strongly felt that we should not be in the rental business. And I don't agree we should be in the rental business. I would like to see us on both those buildings. We would have the revenue to do other things with instead of constantly raising taxes. And I did ask the person who is in the rental business on Front Street, would you be interested in these buildings? Like, do you think there's interest out there? And they did say they were interested. So we know there is interest out there in these buildings. So I think that it would be prudent for us as part of this budget to get the staff to start investigating how to sell the business.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, great. So these 2 buildings will be the Centennial Center in the CN?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, we also own the clinic as well. We could put that one on there as well.
We'll have council make a decision on that direction after the.
Right.
Yeah. All right,
Which slide should you like to go to? So we're going to
So
One-time projects?
that's correct. So the one-time projects are divided into the three categories. The legislative projects, which are legislated and mandated that we have to do this year, so they cannot be cut. We have the 2023 commitments and then the other projects. These 4 items can be cut at council's direction if they wish. Besides the outdoor washrooms, those have already been purchased and the project has already started.
the total project was 200,000+ and we had
That's correct.
revenue from, I believe, KDSB and somewhere else as well for. So 2023 commitments, I guess, we're gonna look at 1, 3, and 1, sorry. Heritage and culture tourism, interim tourism diversification, and water bottle.
Water things over here.
Yes, the fountains have been purchased. This is one way that council can choose to fund it, if they wish to proceed.
So, Councilor
I would like to see 1 and 3 removed. On 23 commitments. With what we're being asked for at this point in the budget, I don't see it prudent adding another position to the municipality. It's only 19,000 this year, but next year it'll be $80,000. So I'd like to see that removed. And as I stated at the time, for number 3, I didn't think we needed to have this enhancement study done for the $10,000. And the rest is already covered.
number one, if we don't get anybody hired, will that money come back to us or?
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, yeah. So if we aren't able to attract a candidate, then we wouldn't expend the 19,000. Correct.
And I as well was opposed to 1 and 3 originally, and I'm definitely still opposed. I don't think it's the time to do the study on the tourism diversification. I think we're jumping the gun on that. And I don't believe in raising taxes for an interim position. So I would like to see both of those gone.
Councilor Timpson.
I could live without the number 1, but I really think that we're missing the boat if we eliminate the enhancement study, because we always have to be looking at the future, and we need to have documentation when the money comes available for something like this, which will greatly enhance the quality of life in this town and will attract people and retain people. We would have a study there in front of us to say, we've got this, we're after the money. We lost out 3 years ago because we weren't ready. And I feel very strongly we should keep this in there. We're never going to advance in terms of arenas, pools, Cedar Bay, or anything like that.
Councilor Van Breda.
I agree too. Like, I know for number 1, if we don't get it, I know they'll come back to us. So for number 3, again, I feel that it's the same way, that I don't want to miss the boat. And then because understanding how to attract and retain people to Cetaphil is vitally important. And so I feel like, $10,000 to get a real 3-dimensional perspective, how to make this town better for everybody, how to attract and retain more people, more professionals. I feel like that is for the value of what it's worth the amount of money. So 100%, you know, we can take that over. Number 3, I don't want to miss a boat on that one. And it comes back to bite us in the butt in the future.
Councilor Boone.
Can we get some clarification from staff exactly what number 3 entails?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Lawrence. So this was the council asked that this come forward last year. It's the part of the intent of the study is to look at the our current recreational assets, where they're at, what we need to do to enhance them, looking at the growth of the community in terms of recreational requirements in that respect. Part of it is looking at council going to look at the feasibility of a pool. So it's looking at and also part of it would also look at how the municipality can better attract other types of events of sporting recreation nature that can support the community and its interests. So it's going to look at all of those things if it goes forward.
Are we able to use the map tax for that? It's tourism.
Currently, yes, that's what's being proposed, is that the 19,000 for the intern, the 30,000 for the outdoor washrooms, and the 10,000 for the tourism diversification infrastructure enhancement study would be funded through that tax, is what was being proposed.
Cassie.
Yeah, we don't have someone right now. I could live without the intern and put that money towards something else that's funded through the tax base or the tax levy increases. I would like to keep 3 though. The study.
What's the neighbor?
Yeah, if it's coming through the MAT tax, I know that initially we had the water bottle coming through the MAT tax and it was switched to utilities. So that sort of relieved what was coming out of the MAT tax. If we use the MAT tax for 3, I could go for that. Number 1 still off the table for me. Just a question on what we have for MAT tax total, like in reserves.
So currently at the end of 2023, we have $151,000 in MAT tax revenue that the municipality can use. So in regards to one-time projects, staff is requesting to use $75,200 in order to pay for some of the services that are currently on the screen. However, if council chooses to remove number 1, we would have an additional $19,000 that council can allocate at another location within the budget.
Other council on this page. I'm beginning to think that maybe instead of scribbling notes, I should bring some things to a decision and direction. And Councilor Constant.
I noticed that in the operating budget, the 2024 tax is listed at 165,000 on portion. So that's correct, right?
That's currently what we're estimating that it would would
we
be.
can't spend until it goes into reserves. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just check how. Okay.
You spend money you don't have.
Yes.
All right. So, council, I think what I'll do is we had some direction on the operational budget for the next budget presentation. That I just want to formalize direction to staff. And one of the items was, well, covering 3 items, 4 direction to staff to, and I think the direction would be CAO treasurer to review these items and report back to council with, is there room for movement? So it was the supplies, the administration costs, and the contracted services. Is it fair to just give that as a general direction review those, come back with the next budget report with prepared to say where the wiggle room is, if there is any, or where it's not, in your opinion. And, okay. And the other item, I think it was the $250,000 land purchase, that maybe that could be brought back as a further explanation as well. Is that fair enough on direction? CEO, you're asking a question or saying yes?
I'm asking a question. Junior Lawrence, yeah, just a couple of other items too that if we can. I also have direction to staff arising out of the delegation to review user fees for the rec center.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't take that as but good. I thought that
I just want to make sure and
parking fees at the airport would be, I guess that was in the operational budget, could be considered there, just a review on that through an assessment.
Okay. As well as just again to confirm that council does want, Junior Lawrence, to confirm that council does want staff to also begin the process of investigating sale of certain assets.
That was coming next, but I don't think that that's fair to include that as part of what you bring back next time. That's very much in this part of the budget process, the sale of the buildings, but definitely bringing a report back to council in the first, 4 months of the year, 6 months, because I think it would take a bit of a review on the sale of the buildings, including the Front Street buildings and the Hugh Allen Clinic. We might put the airport into that too and see what we get for the airport.
Absolutely.
But not yet, so don't put up with it. Councillor Cassidy.
Yeah, I'm just with the planning and our planning consultants, are we tied with an actual contract for a certain amount of time to the ones that the services utilize?
I will have to go back to that. I know we did contract with them initially for the review of the OP and zoning bylaw. I'm not sure right now if we're just on a sort of a retainer basis or if we have a specific term, but I will look into that and clarify as well what exactly the costs are for the planning consultant versus other things that are included in that contract services line.
My other question is around the town garage. Like presently, we are budgeting for the staff, but plus we're also budgeting to contract it out because we have no staff. So we're on both sides of the fence. So can we investigate either bringing staff in from the border country, which is the other that the local garages are doing in town, or look at making an actual real deal with the local garages at a lower rate than we're paying right now? You know, one or the other.
Both of those things are being investigated through Mayor Lawrence. We will, well, I guess it depends on how long council wants to wait to pass their budget. We would not be able to give you a solid answer on either of those options by the next budget meeting. And so my recommendation to council is that we budget for both, and whichever one we don't need to use becomes part of the 2024 surplus, would be the cautious way to proceed. We technically can't not budget for the wages because we have a contract with the union, and if as soon as we can fill those positions, we have an obligation to because of our contract with the union, so we have to budget for that. The amount of time that it will take to recruit from overseas and train and bring them up to speed is unclear at this point.
But if we're spending an additional, I believe it's almost $60,000 on garages, would we not be prudent to maybe increase the wage to a point where we would get people instead of paying garages at this point? Since it's in the budget anyways. And I mean, the reality is that tradespeople are at a premium and they come with a premium price. And we need to recognize that and maybe pay our tradespeople at a rate that we would be able to attract someone, because we will not be attracting someone at the rate that we're paying right now. We've had no applicants over, 6 months and no one is coming, I believe. So we either need to look at taking that money that we already have in the budget and maybe topping up the tradespeople to a rate where they want to work for us, where, the remuneration, is, in line with their skill level.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I certainly hear that. Again, those positions are unionized, so there is a negotiation process that has to happen. And I don't want to say a whole lot more about that right now in this context, but we are looking at all those options, and we can go back at the February meeting with a recommendation one way or the other, if council wishes to do that. Or they can leave the money in there as it is, and as we investigate as to which option is going to satisfy our needs the soonest and the most economically, then we will take that approach. But the other thing we have to remember is that the funds that we expended last year was for a 6-month period. We're now coming into a 12-month period, so we have to be prepared for that as well.
Okay, council, then on the page that's up now, I'm not sure what you titled this page, but the commitments, as I understand it, it's under 2023 on this page of all the items. It's items 1 and 3 under 2023 commitments that may be open to debate here. The first two items we've been told are mandated by the province. We have no choice. And the number 2 and number 1, I think, are well underway. So it's 1 and 3 under 2023 commitments. So I guess the question would be, do we have majority in favor or opposed to the Heritage, Culture and Tourism Interim funding of $19,000? Sorry, I better give you a decision. In favor of keeping it there at 19,000. In favor. Opposed? Okay, so that's removed. That's fair stuff. Tourism Diversification Infrastructure Enhancement Study, $10,000. In favor of keeping it? 3. Opposed? Removed. Nothing else on this page then, council? We agreed on the others. Councilor Timpson, yeah.
So what did we just vote on, whether we would keep the tourism?
Council has removed items 1 and 3 under 2023 commitments.
So there was consensus that number 3 would stay if we had if we came under that text.
I only saw 2 people raise their hands to remove. I didn't see the third.
Tourism number 3 are in favor of retaining tourism diversification infrastructure enhancement study. Retaining 3. In favor of removing? 3 and 1 abstention. Abstention is taken as a negative. Removed. So this page 1, 2 under legislative projects remain, 1 under other projects, and 2 under 2023 commitments. 1 and 3 are removed. Fair enough. The next item, treasurer.
Would be external agencies and donation requests. So in regards to the public library is requesting an additional $12,962 in regards to the Sioux Public Library. We are also looking at, in regards to the community donation requests, the Nordic Nomads, the Northern Lights Community Theater, the Sioux Regional Physicians, and the Sturgeon River Cottagers Association.
We'll go through the line by item, but like that, we're not going to remove the library, so that won't be voted. I just open it for discussion. Open it for discussion on the library. Any Councilor Timpson?
Just going to say, concerning the library, our library is one of the poorest in the whole region. Yeah, we did some looking at other libraries, and they're 400,000, 600,000 rate their budgets. So I think that this is pretty modest. We've had recruitment costs, we've had the up salaries so much. I think this is pretty good. I think the library's done very well on small 30s. modest amount. And I think that the service that they're operating now and the services, the events and the activities are really well received by the public, and much raised this happening. So I fully support the 12,000 increase.
Thank you, Councilor Van Breda.
Yeah, I just want to say to that, I think that our library is definitely like a gem of our town. They do a lot for the community, and I know that with so I am 100% in favor. I know that with the previous CAO, now with the new one, I've offered to sit on the library board since I do have space for another board to sit on. Brian, I'm more than happy to join the board if I know that. Try to get it previous with the CAO, now with the new one, I'm more than happy to sit on the board, more than happy to join that, join Councillor Timpson. But yeah, our library is definitely a deal within our town. They do so much, and 100% in favor of them.
Councilor I think we're gonna need some more clarification on what we're voting on here. I think some people are thinking of voting on the $12,000 when we're actually voting on the 3,700 or 378,461 at a 3.1% increase automatically. That doesn't include operations. So we're voting to give them or to start their budget at 3.1%. And we haven't even got the operations at 5.6%.
Yes, this is democracy in action, like I am not going to cut services, especially a service that's as important as the library, period.
Yeah. I've never voted over 2% on any budget. And I don't like the fact that this has been moved out of the operations. And we have to debate this, that yay or nay, that we're going to give them $378,000. We usually just vote on the incremental increase. I'm not voting for 3%. That leaves nothing else for anybody else. From my perspective. So.
See ya.
Thanks. See you.
To you, Mayor Lawrence. So, I mean, I'm not sure I fully understand the concern, because if we take that out and say, okay, it's 12,000 and whatever percent increase that is 0 point whatever, that 378 is going to go back into operating then. And so instead of 5.62, we're now at 8.62. So I'm not sure I understand it's still all coming from the same pot.
I understand it's coming from the same pot, but I'm not voting for, just so I'm transparent with everything, I'm not voting for anything over 2% total. So I can't vote 3% just for the library.
Okay, so
that's just me personally.
Right. So just so I understand then, through you, Mayor Lawrence, so you're suggesting that we're not going to pay some of the uncontrollable costs because the budget will be over 2%. We'll look at just the uncontrollable costs.
If 4 people vote for that, then that's what.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Councilor Van
Do we have the CEO in the audience with us of the library?
Yeah, I'm present. I'd be happy to talk. Question.
And what is your question?
To explain more about the increase of the 12,962 increase request, just ask what it's going towards, and sorry, just
up to the
I'm on the spot.
No, that's great. That's why I'm here.
Yes, you next to you. Thanks. Just bring that up on top of you. Thanks. Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you brought me up here, and I've actually prepared a few things to say in the event that I was able to speak. So thanks for acknowledging that. First of all, as always, the library wants to acknowledge the mayor and council and thank them for their question, and thank you for including us in this discussion, because I think we are a gem, as it was put, of the community. We are a great asset to our community. A couple notes that was mentioned earlier. So the municipality actually established the public library through a bylaw as well. The library's existence is due to the municipality's support. We are not a department, that's true, but we are a unique kind of hovering space between department and isolated service. We do exist through the Public Libraries Act, so we are governed by that by the Public Libraries Act, and that's established. That establishes how we administrate and how we use our funding. So just so you know, there's controls in place that the library is not asking for any kind of amount that we feel, like doing this year. We definitely have some controls in place on how we follow the municipality's lead. A couple notes also, if I could just keep going. As all agencies in the community, the library strives to produce quality services at the cheapest cost possible. I'd like to voice the fact that the library is one of the only public services that offers programming, cultural, and education events to our community members at no cost. For exceptional events, we may charge a nominal fee to cover our materials, but I would stress that the vast majority of our services are free to all members and non-members. So we service a lot of members of the community, and again, non-members, just basis on having our doors open, much reflected in our operating hours and our operating costs. It's also been noted that community members flourish when access to information and programming does not depend on income. We have a lot of people in this town who are struggling with their incomes, struggling with inflation. At the library, I can't stand by that statement anymore. We have many families that are struggling to provide experiences or safe places for their children to explore, teenagers and visitors to the community that are looking for a place to access Wi-Fi and services. The library provides all of that to all of these groups. I think that for the small, in the grand scheme of the budget, for what we're asking and for the small increase that this is, we're really meeting a lot of service needs of people from our community, visiting our community, and maybe attracted to stay in our community, such as physicians, which I've noticed is a big part of the budget further on. In terms of what we've submitted, the library is similar to every other operation in town. We strive to provide a living wage and quality services to our patrons. In addition, as Councillor Timpson mentioned, we are actually operating on a smaller budget for our service reach in terms of users in the region. So I think that's something that we should be proud of, what we're able to provide and for the amount of population that we reach. We also have aging, so to explain a little bit of that 12,000 increase, on top of the inflation and the cost of living, we're forced to submit the budget as it is. We also have aging technology and equipment. This is something that we put off for many years because we're trying to just provide services, period. At the moment, just like everyone else, we need to upgrade some of our equipment and technology so that we can keep up with the times and keep up with our services. It'll only help us keep going. And again, this is a Band-Aid situation. That $12,000 is, or sorry, 12-ish, is only going to help us keep going. It's not going to actually meet all of the needs that we have to upgrade our services and our technology. To trim down further would actually result in a cutback of our services, our staff, or our operating hours. And I think that would be a really kind of a travesty for our community if we had to pare that down anymore, because again, I think it's very important to note that we are a free service for many of our patrons. And I'd invite you to ask me any questions if I didn't cover it in my long statement.
So I'm also a fan of the library, but we're, as Councillor Lego said, we're in a very difficult situation with a 10.68% tax increase looking down that. So any way we can cut any costs, are beneficial. I have attended events at your library. I went to an art event and 2 people came from out of town. We went as a group and it cost us $5 each. And we were fed. We had snacks and coffee. Now, is there any way that you could make those events a fundraiser? I mean, we were affluent people. We went to other events. I went to an event in Kenora and I spent $200 to go to that event. $5 to go to yours, and I was fed at yours. So is there any way that you could have a fundraising component into your budget where you could make these events, you could make where people that can't afford to come, they can still come, but people can afford to come, would pay for at least for what they're getting, where you're making money. You could make money on. I'm willing to spend money at the library. I'm willing to give money.
I'm happy to hear that.
But every time I go to your events, they're free. And I mean, you've had some epic events that are worth value and people are willing to pay for. So I mean, I believe that your $12,000, you could get that just from events. When a group of women and us, we ran the Patrick Hunter event at the Legion, and in an evening we raised $1,500 in one evening. Very little effort, So there is a demand for what you're offering at the library, and there are people who are willing to pay for that. So I believe that there is an ability here to fundraise the money for the library and increase your budget through fundraising.
I appreciate all your comments. I'm really glad that you have used our services, and I hope you keep coming back for more. I guess one comment I would say in response to that, though, is we also really strive to make it equitable. You mentioned it was an affluent group, but there was probably some people that maybe could come to another event because it was an affordable event. So, I mean, I think it's great. We will definitely, and we always do, try to look at other ways to fundraise and up our revenue. And I should also point out that we were in surplus this year because of our trimming, because we have not been in deficit. So for sure, I hear your comments and I appreciate that. And we'll be doing everything we can to fundraise and to, be as self-sustaining as we can. But we can't rely for sure that everyone has an affluent generosity for attending events of ours.
I recognize that a lot of schools do events where if you can't afford to pay committee rates, but people can't afford to pay. And they're looking at the event that was there with the head up. There's hundreds of people there. I mean, hundreds, probably 150 of these people are changing money. But you could have still made it that if you can't afford to come, just come. Like there is a hybrid.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind. And when we can, we will. But again, I think that really we try to stay with the integrity that we offer as much to the community as we can to be inclusive as we can. So that is a great example because I heard that it was incredibly well attended. So maybe there was a misrevenue there. But I will say there's something we said for drawing people in and then collecting that revenue once we do know it's a success and we can continue and carry on from that. But yeah, I appreciate the comments because we'll be doing everything we can to bring in as much money as we can and make this an easy decision for you.
Just a question, Treasurer, perhaps you can help. In the graphic, it says 360,500 last year, a $12,900 increase, which adds up to 373,000 and change. But it says 378. Can you explain that? Okay, so it's 373.
Thank you. Excuse me.
So that explains that. Thank you. So, CAO, I might ask for your help here. I'm wondering whether I should ask it for council now to whether they're in favor or not of 373 and change for the library, which was a $12,900 increase from last year, and then that part of the budget is done, or any of those?
Given the different perspectives on where this fits in the overall budget, my recommendation would be to just set this one aside until the next budget meeting and look at it with the rest of operations.
Okay, and perhaps the library could look and confirm your number, and is there room to come down $4,000 or whatever that whatever it is. And if it's confirmed, it's confirmed. If there's room, don't take it out. I wouldn't advise that.
Thank you.
Councilor Lakeland.
Yeah, just a quick question for 21 and 22. There was deficits at the library.
I believe there
some $1,000. Does the library take care of that?
No, I'm sorry. Can you clarify that number that you just said?
Was it 108,000 in deficit for those 2 years?
No, I don't believe it was.
You have a number?
I'm looking at the treasurer because she might have a further memory than I am.
I know for 2021 off the top of my head, it was around $12,000.
That sounds.
And so how it works is the Sioux Public Library Board finds other avenues to bring in revenue in order to support any sort of deficit from the year before. So it's never part of an additional request that they ask from the municipality.
Okay. And further to that, I do know that we did cut some costs specifically to help reduce any deficit possibilities.
Yeah. I don't know where I got those numbers from. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Good. I'll just carry on that. So this will come back as part of the next budget presentation. Nordic Nomads Prospectors Keep $3,500 donation request.
I have a question. I did discuss it with the AO earlier. How did we come about where we as a municipality are requesting applications for donations. I mean, we're taking taxpayers' dollars and we're donating them on their behalf to organizations.
So did you get an answer? Did you get an answer from the CAO how that came about?
Yeah, but I would like the public to
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, let's hear
hear
it.
how
Let's hear it.
it came about. And when we were doing this in the past, we did not have the Chamber of Commerce MAT tax did not exist, but the Chamber of Commerce MAT tax exists now. And I don't believe that the public realizes that they should be going to the Chamber of Commerce MAT tax. So this year it is budgeted $165,000 will go to the Chamber of Commerce, which is to be distributed to organizations who bring tourism to town. And every one of these, well, not the physicians, but the nomads and the theater group could go to the Chamber of Commerce. I know that they're asking for insurance and capital items, which are not allowed, but they could juggle their budget and pay for that out of their own operating costs and ask for something else and be at the exact same place. So I really think that we need to, instead of looking at these individually, we need to look at the whole concept of why is the municipality asking for applications for donations. I don't believe we should be doing that. I believe that we need to get the clerk to investigate how we change that process. If it's a bylaw, can we rewrite the bylaw, or what steps we need to do to remove donations from the budget? I don't believe they should be in our budget and ask taxpayers to pay for them.
CAO, did you want to respond to it first?
Junior illness, yes. So council many years ago did pass policy with respect to donations and sponsorships and all of those types of things. And so that's how it came to be, certainly before my time. So that's where that initiated from. And I think that answers that part of the question.
Councilor Bolt first, and then Councilor Miller.
I agree with Councilor Glasgow on why we have to make decisions on these private donations at this stage. We also have an economic development option that could help maybe get some funding for these groups as well. Boss was correct. The chamber has some MAT tax money, and that's about it for now.
Thank you, Councilor Labour.
Considering where we're at with this budget, removing that 0.58% is a little help. So I'm a no for all four of them.
Thank you. I saw Councilor Timpson, your hand up.
Yeah, I think most municipalities have a process like this, and where they donate to programs that will improve the community, which are not necessarily in their mandate. I do believe in everything that Nomads, it's a community theater, it's all volunteers. When we look at the positions issue, we are sorely short of positions here. And when we look at the Cottages Association, I've always supported that there should be some support for those folks who, 33 of them, and I think the taxes are probably $400,000 that we didn't have when we made the initial agreement about supporting roads. And I think they should be getting something. So I would go with maybe 50% of each of these categories. I think we have to support volunteers. If we want to attract and keep people here, we have to do some support for volunteer groups, positions, and I express my opinion on the Cottagers Association.
Councilor Van Green.
But yeah, just looking at Appendix B1 for the cross-country ski club, asking for 50% of a new rough trail cutter. It's due to that they are eligible for funding from other sources, such as the question 13, please list other funding and revenue sources. They mentioned that they have been writing an annual lottery ticket for the past 3 years and have applied to be granting funds over the past 2 years do the mapped tax funds for capital towards the new storage building and warming shelter in partnership with Friends of Cedar Bay and Cedar Bay Trail Cove to be built at the Cedar Bay next spring. So they're only asking for 50% of a new trail cutter. It's $3,500 without the cost $6,230.
I do feel that we are supporting volunteers. That was the purpose of the mat tax.
Yeah.
The mat tax, creating the mat tax gave the community revenue, which these organizations who do good work can go to. So for us to create the mat tax and $165,000 in 1 year, a substantial amount of money to go into help these organizations. You know, so for us to again take it from taxpayers' dollars over and above the mat tax. So that would be the 165,000 plus 66,000, 220,000 to support volunteers. That's a substantial amount of money that we don't have.
I mean, we are taking out mat tax money in the budget as well. Should we just trim the mat tax funding? And
No, there's two different types of mat tax. There's our portion, which we're spending, but the Chamber of Commerce gets 50%, which they are giving to organizations. And very few organizations are applying at this time. Their money has built over time. They have a substantial amount of money. So we need to get maybe our economic development officer or whatever to work with these organizations to educate them that that money is there and they can access it. We don't need to give them taxpayers. We need to let them access money that's sitting in a bank account being unused.
Sir, yes. I for myself, given the situation we're in right now, I'm aligned with Councillor Lego. I don't know that we can move forward with the donation request this year.
Okay. I have to recuse myself from the bottom and discussion on that, as well as council.
yeah, what's that gotta do for slurp C? I have to do that.
So I was going to propose actually, but
Which
Yeah, one by line.
my thought, I'll just express some of my thoughts here. How it came to your question, Councillor Costello, and your response, CIO, interesting, but it introduced to me, they were probably solving a problem at the time. And, but now this has introduced to me another problem and a slippery slope of who's going to request and who's not. With respect to the slurpsy, you might be surprised to me. As much as I think the municipality and municipalities in general need to resist the insidious downloading of healthcare costs onto municipalities. We're paying now, this year will be close to $500,000. It's not $500,000, I think it's just slightly under for the typical districts once for the age for long-term care. And that number goes up every year, and access to the municipal taxpayers, the municipal residents to long-term care goes down every year. We pay more. We're subsidizing long-term care that should be costs that should be picked up by other levels of government. We're paying now our TDSB contribution, our levy there, it's over $500,000 just to land ambulance, healthcare costs. And there's a considerable discussion going on now with KDSB lobbying the federal government to take some of the costs because they're trying to download federal and provincial. We're paying the health unit. We're paying over $250,000 a year. We're paying $1.5 million off of it. Then you consider the mental health and addictions costs that we're covering through police insurance, the additional costs there. We need to resist and stop paying healthcare costs. It's not the municipal tax base. So that my feeling on this, I'm thinking if we're going to deny one, I'm of the same feeling as Councillor Lego and Councillor Cassidy and maybe others that we just don't do any community donation requests. It's a blanket no. And then we look at the policy and revision to the policy this year. Those are my thoughts. Now, see, so help me with how do we deal with the
I would recommend that we do a straw vote, if you will, on each item separately. That way, members who have to leave on certain ones can leave and have the room for that.
Well, I'm an avid cross-country skier, and I hate to say no. So it's not a conflict of interest. So I don't think anybody had a peculiar an interest on the first one.
Correct.
So a straw vote on Nordic Nomads. All in favor of the donation.
50%.
That's a no. Straw vote on Northern Lights Community Theater. It's a no. Silicon Regional Physician. Sorry. All in favor of the Silicon Regional Physician Services Incorporated donation. Revolving door. On favor of the Sturgeon River Cottages Association Incorporated. So, there's no to the donation requests and also direction from council, I think, to review that policy and bring back a report to council in the coming months. That's not part of the budget process. Fair enough, CIO? Very good. Yeah, let's have a 5 or 6 minute health break. Back at 7:45.
Do you have a calculator?
Yep.
Do you have a calculator?
Hey, by the way, I got the,
Oh, yeah, don't worry.
I gotta talk about it.
Arena, where you going to Washington, like?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lined up.
How about the fact that the average land?
Button.
I wouldn't have-
Well, you got your own now?
Sorry.
We're bringing out any exclusions, don't give so.
Pardon me, I'm hard of hearing. I work at the airport.
Thank you. I'll bring the meeting back to order at 7:48 p.m. And I think we're on to the next section, Treasurer.
Capital projects. So in regards to the airport and the facilities, so the airport is all funded through funding reserves, long-term debt, and user fees. It's currently up there. It's facilities that is requesting 45,000 to come from taxation.
To be clear, that's the airport long-term. I know it's our long-term debt, but it's segregated as such, is it not?
So the long-term debt at the airport is paid through their users.
So everything out there under airport department is paid for through airport, user fees, and the long-term debt is paid off through user fees, etc. So council, any questions on the airport department? Facilities, men's change room renovations. Is this at the rec center?
That is correct.
And this seems to me it's being an ongoing, but I'll let Councillor Lego first, and then Councillor Castle.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. I would just like to remove the taxation. And since we've saved the 50,000 from the water fountains, because we moved, when we initially got it, the 50,000 was under MAT tax. And then we figured it out. I would like to just see that under the MAT tax, the 45,000. And then we'll see where we're at with what we have left for MAT tax for the other.
Councillor Castle.
That was my thought as well. I think we've had this on the docket for discussion of previous budgets, and we did postpone it. It's at a point where something needs to happen now. So I don't think it's something we let go, and I think we move it to MAT tax.
Councillor Bowman.
I've been in there, yeah, and it needs some work, but there's other areas of the arena that needs work as well, and the rec center. So I just like them to take a closer look and see if that's what's needed first to be repaired. Maybe use that 45 or something else.
I'm guessing analysis. I'm guessing that staff have done that, though, Councillor Bowman, to bring it in this far. CIO.
Community reports, yeah. So other areas in the Memorial Arena Recreation Center, there is money already in the budget to address some of those areas. This was one area that was sort of over and above what we've already allocated.
Is that okay? Is it carryover from last year or what?
Some is carryover, some is just part of the regular operating costs. For example, some of the contracted services fees that we're seeing increases in, that will be to address some of what we need to do in some of the areas of the evening and rec center.
It's hard to read. I agree to that. No offense, just because I don't know what is covered, what you're looking at. You know, whether it's the hardware on the doors, whether it's, you know, I know there's budgeting for flooring, volleyballs. That's up at the tennis courts. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Council, anything further? So, CAO treasurer, there's been a suggestion to move this from taxation to MAT. Direction from council on it?
Yes, please.
I'm wondering if this is the appropriate, should we be looking at in some what we're assigning to MAT tax at the next meeting, or is it?
Mayor Lawrence, the treasurer and I are keeping a tally in our heads as we go through this meeting with respect to where we're at. And then if we get to a point where we think council has already exhausted MAT tax, we'll put up our hand and say, it's all gone. However, what we will what we will do for the second budget meeting would be to sort of come back with a summary of everything that's being funded through that tax based on the direction it gets.
So this won't be, it doesn't have to be a final decision, but for now, Council.
Sorry, just was thinking. So, now if you're saying that the other repairs are in contracted services and we're asking you to look at those and reduce them, but then we're allocating this funding for the specific project, then how can you cut those from the rec center? Would we not be more, are we allowed to give you $45,000 for repairs for the rec center? Do we have to tie it to a certain project?
So we did it this way just so council has an idea of what that specific 45,000 was going to be used for. We can just put that money into another part of the operating budget. But regardless, if we want the work to the change room to be done, we just identified this specific capital because it's a larger amount than some of the other what we call them interventions we're hoping to make. So that's it kind of hit that threshold to be considered a capital project. So that's why we dealt with it this way in capital as opposed to operating.
If some of the other, if it's routine sort of wear and tear, maintenance and upgrade, I don't think that's appropriate for the council table, but when it gets significant renovation of 45, I think it is. Councilor Cassidy.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that this would probably go through a procurement process, right? This wouldn't be something we do in-house. So that would trigger versus some of the other smaller repairs, which would just be pick up the phone and call someone to do the work.
So council, direction to staff to go ahead with the main change from renovations, but assign it to MAC tax versus general taxation. All in favor? Direction given. Next item.
Next section is regards to public works and utilities on extra capital items that NWI has to do repairs and contracted maintenance on.
So questions on public works?
Now, the multiple road resurfacing and the parking lot is coming from the gas tax, right?
That is correct.
Now, how do we decide, like we did the road report 5 years ago. So were they identified on the road report as the next one in the queue?
So the priorities have been, I mean, we always go back to that report. Sometimes, however, certain areas become rated quicker than we had hoped for. So just one example that comes to mind right off the top of my head is 3rd Avenue North. It has gone considerable more traffic because of all the buses now using that as the primary entrance. And so that would be like one area that we'll be looking at from 3rd Avenue, from 5th Avenue North to sort of beyond the Golf and Curling Club, I believe is the area we're looking at, is one of them.
It's mostly areas that don't have a lot of infrastructure underneath the ground, and it's just like an overlay. We did an overlay last year off 3rd Avenue, just before Curtis Street, and that overlay, it's half the price of asphalt, it's half as thick, but the road base itself is in good shape, so you don't have to reach and construct the whole thing, so it's considerably a lot less cost.
I'm just curious because we as councillors are always approached by people concerned about their roads. So that's why I'm asking the question, how do people get into the queue? I know there's a lot of people. And so how do we decide? So we just assess at that time through Public Works and so when we get this new report, which we're paying for, so then people will be prioritized. Will that report be published so that people can see that they're in the queue?
I think it's when you say people are in the queue, I think I think we need to let the professional staff make the determination here, not by who shows up. You know, I understand, but listen, but we all drive the roads too and walk the roads, but
No, but isn't the, like, we're doing a study, we're paying for a study from this budget. So then that study is the professional deciding what will be
yeah,
the next, yeah, to be done.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Lawrence, the outcomes of that, the road and sidewalk assessment will feed into the overall asset management plan, which is where that road rehabilitation piece is driven by. So yes, that information, when the study's done, that will be made available. Whether or not it will give a specific page to do this road, this road, this road, it may be just more of a set of data. Here's the rate of deterioration on this road or the sidewalk, and then we'll have to take that raw data and help determine those lists. But yes, that will absolutely inform that going forward.
I have to know that my road is the worst road in town. I'm hoping, Councilor Cassidy.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for the road resurfacing. I noticed in the report it said to the entrance of the high school. So it won't go past the ball diamonds or through the ball diamonds, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Anything further on public works? Councilor Simpson.
Yeah, I mean, how bad is the recreation parking? The drainage problem, is it really?
There's lots of heaving in the parking lot where it's not have proper drainage. So without the proper drainage, it's causing a lot of heaving in the parking lot because the clay is getting saturated and heaving. So you see some of the poles too are starting to lean with all the heaving. So it's just basically recessing those manholes and light standards and then just repaving the portions that are being repaired.
Yeah.
To you, Mayor Lawrence, so this is one of those projects where if we don't do it this year, it will get progressively worse and it'll cost more. So this is one of those trade-offs.
So, and to be clear, the funding means outside funding
To you, Mayor Lawrence, yes. So in this case, it means the federal gas tax.
and the reserves. Okay, thank you. Utilities.
Oh,
sorry.
can we get a
So, all in favor of the public works as presented here? Utilities. And the water was, any questions here? This all comes from reserves and it's from user fees for sewer and water. Is that correct? See no question? Question, Council Thompson?
The 55,000 for the tank liner is a sewer tank, right? It's not the water tank, right? Sewer. Is that correct?
That is correct.
If you could add 2 more zeros.
Yes. I didn't want to repair it, we're buying a new one.
All right, do you need direction on that? All in favor of approving the utilities? Carried. Motion given. Treasurer.
We now move on into recreation and culture in regards to the 3 items displayed.
Councilor Rampier. We have to go with somebody else first.
I'd say maybe for the big belly trash cans, can that go into the mat tax here? The 14,000, just that's not under taxation instead.
For you, Mayor Lawrence, yeah, we have the additional funds in order to do that.
Okay, perfect.
So the way it's written out, the 12, 25, 14 and the taxation map, it's just, how is that split?
So the MAT tax as shown above on the screen would cover currently the weight room, new equipment for the weight room, and taxation would then cover the fencing and the new garbage cans.
Is there a suggestion? I'm not sure if the suggestion was, can we use the MAT tax for all of these things?
That was maybe one question.
Yeah, I think that's good.
How much is left?
So currently, with my calculation, we have 59,800 remaining.
My suggestion, I mean, fencing and dugout, I know that we have And they don't have to be tourism related either, but certainly.
Yeah.
So I would propose council that we do this from the map tax. So staff, the direction would be go ahead with the recreation and culture, but the funding source the map tax for the entire amount. All in favor? Direction go.
So then a quick new recap. Council gave direction in regards to the operating to come back with a better idea in regards to the supplies, admin, and contracted services.
And land purchase.
And land purchase. So in regards to land purchase, anytime we purchase land, we pull it out of a reserve.
But also in the same line back into the reserve. So if you're pulling it out of reserve, there is no cost, but we would, if we didn't take it out of reserve, we would have no need to add. And that's in the treasury line.
What did you bring that back? We've asked you to bring it back to the next meeting, budget meeting as an explanation. So you don't have to answer it now.
Yes. And so I believe that was the direction from council to staff in regards to operating CAO.
At this time, that was the direction, my understanding. CAO.
One-time projects, I believe. Sorry. We removed the heritage, cultural, and tourism intern, and we also removed the study. So that 29,000 then that was currently coming from the municipal accommodation tax is then being allocated to capital projects.
Councillor Labour.
I just need some clarification on this study. Is this a study that the EDO brought to us about Front Street? Or is this a different study? Because that's what I thought it was.
So the update to the CIP designs for Front Street is underway, and we'll have that soon. We're still waiting to hear back from FedNor on because the total cost to the tourism diversification enhancement study is about 200,000. The municipal portion is 10,000, and that's to look at our current recreational facilities, the rec center, the outdoor recreation complex, and all that kind of stuff, where they're at, how we can maximize their value and use to the community. It's to look at the feasibility of the pool. It's to look at how we can leverage our recreational assets to attract investment in terms of like tournaments and that type of thing. So those are all the things that are covered with that tourism diversification enhancement stuff.
Okay, I was incorrect in what I thought it was for. Okay.
Sorry, Councilor, I may have been too. Could you bring it back to the next meeting then, or how do you propose we proceed with it?
I think the treasurer and I understood from the discussion up to this point is that council wanted both the intern and that study removed at that full budget. If that's changed.
Yeah, I changed my position on that because I thought it was for something else.
Okay, yeah.
I did too. I recall that the vote was 3-4 and 4 opposed.
Can we take another vote on that? Sure.
They aren't recorded votes or they're straw votes. So
in favor of keeping the $10,000 in, coming from what source? Mat tax?
Well, we currently don't have enough mat tax. Oh, no, sorry. We have $26,000.
$6,000 in for the
Tourism enhancement study.
tourism enhancement study, which will leverage, we hope, $190,000 from external sources. And be paid for locally by the MAT tax. All in favor of keeping that 10 in from the MAT tax? Okay. Carry on.
So, in regards to external agencies and donations, I believe that the Sioux Public Library is looking at possible other revenue sources that can possibly knock down their costs from the municipality. And then in regards to the community donation requests, all those donation requests, I believe, have been currently voted on to be cut. And then in regards to the 2024 capital expenditures, everything has been kept in. However, instead of taxation dollars, the cost would then come from the MAT tax.
Over a second draft of the budget.
In other words, it may be helpful if council wants to give, if there's agreement on what type of a tax increase you're going to be prepared to accept. We just want to make sure that when we come back to you with, we want to be able to show you what we can cut. And then if that doesn't bring us down to the level council's comfortable with, then that will trigger another aspect of the presentation. So it would be helpful if council.
I don't think I'm wanting to ask for a percentage right now, but what I can tell you is from what I understand, I've heard a low of 2% from, and I'm not sure if that was overall. I think what came in today, if everything was added together, would be 10.1% or 10 point something percent. So I can tell you the number you come back with should be between those two numbers. You've already come down a bit from direction from council. I'm guessing we're at 9.5, maybe even 9 at this point. I look around the region and look around the provinces, what other municipalities you coming in at, and I look at the impact freeze, et cetera, the cost of insurance, the cost of inflation. I think 2% will be extremely difficult to achieve. But I think we can do better than 10%. So I think it's somewhere in the middle is where you're going to need to be. Councilor Timpson first.
I was going to say, I was at Roma, and one small municipality was looking at 50%. So we're not doing too bad. I think Toronto was at 10%.
But Toronto was crying about 10%, and they also I read that they were going from $3,200 as a median value on the residential tax to $3,600. They were crying at a 10%. We're starting at probably $4,000 or $4,100 on a median value, and their assessment at $3,500 is probably on a $600,000, $700,000 property. Our assessment at $3,500 is on $180,000 property. So it's not apples and apples by any means. Councilor Constant.
Now, the comment was made that if we ask for 2%, that we're not accepting the uncontrolled costs. But from the operating budget, we've already removed the $360,000 from the library and the recycling, which is far exceeds the uncontrolled costs. So it's not totally unreasonable to have, 2% when you look at that those two costs alone, then plus the library.
You mean 2% overall or 2%?
Well, he's saying like if he wants, 2% overall may not be realistic, but I would like to see 2% overall would be the goal. But when you acknowledge that we have taken things out of the budget that equal more than the uncontrolled costs, and yet the operating budget is still substantially high.
So, just as a matter of example, leasing costs have gone up by $270,000. That's more than 2% right there.
Understood.
Okay,
All right, so you have your direction
we do.
and council? Good with that? Well, Councilor Pasco, I said to you, my expiry time was 8:30. We're going to achieve it. 15 more. 15 more minutes of artificial health left. We need a confirmatory bylaw.
Few minutes, please.
Bylaw number 0924 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Sioux, February 1st, 2024 special council meeting. We read it first, second, and third time in the past. Go by. Councilor Boone, seconded by Councilor Lego. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.